You pick your baby up, they're calm, maybe even drowsy. You walk over to the changing table, lay them down for what should be a quick diaper change, and suddenly everything falls apart. Their faces tightens, their arms jerk, their cry comes fast, sharp, almost offended. And in that moment, a thought hits a lot of parents at once. What just happened? Just seconds ago, they were fine. This is one of those parenting moments that feels weirdly personal because diaper changes are so basic, so ordinary, so necessary. It can make you feel like you're somehow doing something wrong. Why would a baby cry the instant their back touches the table? Why does such a tiny routine turn into a daily emotional explosion? Most people will tell you it's simple. They just don't like diaper changes. But that is only part of the story. Because for your baby, this is not just a diaper change. It is a sudden transition in body position, temperature, touch, control, and connection. And once you see that, the crying starts to look a lot less random and a lot more meaningful. And the real reason this moment feels so big to them is even more interesting.
A lot of parents assume this crying means one of three things. The diaper is already too dirty, the baby is being extra fussy, or they've somehow decided they hate the changing table. And yes, sometimes discomfort is part of it. If a diaper is wet, soiled, or there's skin irritation, of course a baby may protest. But that explanation is incomplete, because many babies cry before anything uncomfortable even happens. They cry at the transition itself. And this is where most parents get confused. Adults see the changing table as a neutral surface. Babies often do not. To them, being laid down can feel like a sudden drop out of a warm, familiar body position into a colder, flatter, more exposed experience. The change happens fast. Your arms loosen, gravity shifts, their visual world changes, air hits the skin, clothing opens, and the rhythm they were in gets interrupted all at once. Research on infants' everyday experiences shows that their world is much more dynamic and sensory-rich than adults tend to realize. Even ordinary moments are part of a constantly changing stream of touch, sound, posture, faces, pauses, and stimulation. So what feels tiny to you can feel enormous to a nervous system that is still learning how to regulate all of it. That is why this is not best understood as bad behavior. It is often a regulation problem, not a behavior problem. Your baby may be reacting to the shift, not rejecting you. And once we see that, the next question becomes obvious. What exactly in that shift is so hard?
The first layer is sensory shock. Not dramatic, not dangerous, just bigger than it looks. On the changing table, babies often experience open air on the skin, cooler surfaces, bright overhead light, a change in pressure on their back, and a sudden loss of the snug containment they had in their arms. Even the act of lifting legs, undoing snaps, wiping and repositioning the body can feel like a lot when your nervous system is still immature. From the American Academy of Pediatrics even notes a very practical clue hidden inside routine diaper advice. Babies are often more comfortable when kept relatively covered during the diaper change. That matters because exposure itself can be part of the upset. The second layer is body orientation. When you lay a baby flat, especially quickly, their whole sense of balance and support changes. The world they were calmly tracking from your chest or shoulder suddenly becomes wide, bright, and less anchored. Their body may not yet feel fully organized in that new position. So the cry you hear may be less like, "I hate this," and more like, "That changed too fast." And then there was a third layer most people miss. Babies are deeply responsive to human touch and co-regulation. A large review of early caregiver touch found that affectionate touch is linked to lower stress reactivity and better autonomic regulation in infants. In plain language, warm, attuned touch helps the baby's body settle. So when a baby is moved from a holding position into a routine that feels more mechanical than connected, the nervous system can react first and think later. What researchers noticed next was even more interesting.
not all touch works the same way.
A recent study on everyday mother-infant contact found that soothing touch, like rocking, patting, bouncing, or stroking, was linked with immediate increases in infants' parasympathetic activity, which is part of the body's calming system, especially in younger babies. That does not mean every cry disappears with a pat, but it strongly supports the idea that how a baby is handled during stressful little moments really matters. And that changes how we understand what babies are really doing on the changing table. The cry is often not about the table itself. It is about the loss of smooth regulation across a transition. 1 second, they had your warmth, your chest, your smell, your movement. The next second, they are flat, exposed, paused, and being adjusted. For a tiny baby, that can feel less like a neutral routine and more like an abrupt sensory event. This is also why responsive interaction changes the whole experience. A study of caregiver-infant interactions during diapering found that caregiver responsiveness and encouragement were especially important for children's well-being in the moment. In other words, diapering is not just hygiene. The interaction during diapering can support a baby's comfort or make the moment harder. Aaliyah Marchand makes a similar point in everyday language. Routines are emotionally meaningful because predictability and reliable emotional tone help infants manage stress during transitions. And diapering, when done with sensitivity, can become a relational moment instead of a rushed interruption. But the deepest part of this behavior is still ahead, because underneath the crying is a message many parents never realize their baby is sending.
The message is often something like this: stay with me through the transition. Not never change me, not you're doing it wrong, and definitely not manipulation. Babies do not use crying on a changing table as a strategy to make your life harder. They use it because crying is one of the fastest tools they have when their body suddenly feels disorganized, overstimulated, or disconnected. Notes that very young babies calm when spoken to or picked up, and that early emotional regulation is deeply tied to the caregiver's voice, face, and physical presence. That matters here, because if the changing table moment strips away connection, even briefly, some babies protest. But if the routine stays relational, the same diaper change can feel dramatically different. So what helps? Slow the landing. Let your baby know with your voice before you move them. Keep one steady hand on their chest, tummy, or legs so their body still feels held, even when it's on the table. Keep part of them covered when possible. Warm the wipe if your baby hates the cold shock. Make your face easy to find. Narrate what's happening in a calm rhythm. For older babies, pause and let them participate a little, holding the diaper, touching the white pack, hearing the same little phrase each time. These are small moves, but psychologically, they turn a sudden event into a predictable sequence. And if none of that helps, that does not mean you failed. Some babies are simply more sensitive to transitions, body position changes, or sensory input than others. But one gentle caution matters. If your baby suddenly cries intensely during diaper changes after previously being fine, seems to have pain when legs are moved, has a rash, fever, swelling, or the crying feels medically unusual, it is worth checking with your pediatrician. Most changing table tears are about regulation, but pain should never be dismissed. And once you understand that, the whole scene starts to look different.
So the next time your baby cries the moment you lay them on the changing table, try to see the moment through their body, not just through the task. A calm baby in your arms is not the same baby, psychologically, as a baby who has just been shifted into a flat, bright, exposed, interrupted position. That cry may be the sound of a transition hitting too hard, too fast. And strangely, that is actually reassuring, because it means this moment is not meaningless. It is not a random drama. It is not your baby being difficult. It is your baby having a very small but very real emotional and sensory experience in the only language they have. Once parents understand that, they often stop fighting the routine and start shaping it. The changing table becomes less of a battleground and more of a bridge from arms to surface, from surprise to predictability, from distress to regulation. And sometimes the biggest change is not that your baby stops crying overnight. It is that you stop hearing the cry as rejection and start hearing it as information. That shift matters. Because when you can decode one daily struggle, you become calmer in the next one too. If this helps you see your baby differently, stay close for more videos like this. And if you've lived this exact changing table moment, you're definitely not the only one. And there's a good chance the next random baby behavior you've been wondering about is a hidden transition signal too.